Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our one-on-one session. Here are our speakers, Group Editorial Director, World Screen, Anna Carugati, and President Telemundo Communications Group Incorporated, Don Browne.
Well, welcome back and welcome the new audience members. I'm delighted to be here with Don Browne. Don, let's start with something that I know is dear to your heart. I touched on in the previous session on the census, but maybe we can get a little bit more into the nitty-gritty about that. First, all the numbers aren't out yet, they'll be out soon. What does that mean to the market at large, and then what does it mean for Telemundo?
Well, we have a half an hour, right?
Yeah.
I could talk about the census for about 5 hours, but let me go very quickly. It's fascinating. I've been evangelizing the census for a long time. And I'll talk to general market people, and they'll look at me and they'll say, well, what are you talking about? And I say, well, look, first of all, it's part of our Constitution. Secondly, it's going to be transformational. Thirdly, in this country, the majority population in this country is getting smaller. The minority population is getting significantly bigger, being driven by growth in Hispanics, okay? What does it mean? Well, it means it's going to be psychologically transformational in our business, in people that watch television, people that buy television. A couple of things are going to happen, and this is where people don't quite connect the dots. When the data comes in, it's going to be significant, and market statistics gets the data. They give it to Nielsen.
Right.
Nielsen takes their meters and they put it back into the growth areas. That means that if you're in Hispanic media, that your business is going to grow dramatically. What it means is the buying community psychologically are going to go, wow. And I think you're going to see a tremendous shift. And it's very interesting. There's another evangelist now about the census. His name is Randy Falco. Now, if some of you don't know, Randy Falco has got a new position as the chief operating officer of a very nice company that I think is called Univision. Randy used to be my boss. Randy got the spirit of the census through us. He became a believer because we evangelized it. And the fact to have someone like Randy out in the marketplace, it sends a signal to the whole market that this is a significant game changer in our country. It's a significant economic game changer, and it signals to the world finally that Hispanics have always arrived, but the power, the economic power and force of Hispanics have arrived, and I think psychologically and practically, it's going to be the biggest game changer in the history of media.
Okay. 6 or 7 years ago, Telemundo sort of tweaked its business model, focusing on original productions. This is another half hour or an hour conversation. Right. We'll try and squeeze this in. How has this model, which I think was pretty radical back then, how has it paid off?
Well, tweak is not accurate. We blew it up.
Okay.
It was, speaking of transformational, frankly, the business model we had, and that was, Telemundo was essentially an acquisition company. We bought other people's content. And frankly, it was a business model that was failing. We could not compete. We couldn't compete with the market, and we had to transform ourselves. So we made a commitment, and this is the beauty of being owned by a company like NBC. They spent a significant amount of resources to allow us to go from an acquisition company to an original content company. And this was transformational for us. And considering 6 years ago, we didn't have a studio business. We didn't have a digital business. We didn't have an international business. And we didn't really have a cable business. And 6 years later, we are the second largest provider of Spanish language content in the world. And when you come to an international convention like this, we are one of the biggest players in the world because we produce content. Now, when you produce content, this is very significant. We used to go and buy a can, and we would bring the can in, and we'd have one play, and that was it. When we opened the door to original content, this is the residual effect that people don't understand. People started coming. The most talented, passionate people in the world started coming in that door to produce content. That is what drives people. And in this country, for Hispanics, 6 years ago, there wasn't a studio to go to. Right. If you were a producer or a director or an actor or a set designer, we opened the door for some of the most talented people in the world to come in that door. Also, our executives. We have one of the strongest executive teams in the world. They've all come to Telemundo not because we acquired someone else's can, but because we produce content. And when you produce content, it allows you to control your own destiny. Every one of our platforms, whether it be digital, cable, or international, is driven by the content that we own. And when you own content, that's critically important. One more thing that's very important is the ability to have strategic alliances. Working with a TV Globo, working with Antena Tres in Spain, working with Sony. When you have content that is compelling and that is respected and popular around the world, you can have strategic alliances that allow you to be bigger than the sum of your parts.
Let's talk about that a minute. Your co-production alliance with Globo on El Clon, which is something that they considered, near and dear to their heart. It was one of their top novellas, performing not only in Brazil but internationally as well. Pick it up from here. What happened at that point?
It's a beautiful story. Once upon a time, NBC came along and was very attracted to buy Telemundo, and two things were attractive. El Clon was a big hit on Telemundo, and of course, Bela Fea. And they thought there were many clones coming, okay? Now, fast forward, Globo sold that to us, and we put it on the air. As Globo saw us become an international content company, as they saw our content and how well it did, and became respectful of our content, we partnered with them, and they gave us this precious property called Clone. And they allowed us creatively to produce Clone for the first time in Spanish language in history. And it became very successful on Telemundo, but this is the interesting part. It's become very successful around the world. And as we speak, it is now running on Televisa. Our production of Clone is running on Televisa in Mexico and is #1 in its time period. So this original content idea keeps on giving.
And speak to me about the international distribution. It's not only Clone that is doing well internationally. You have a lot of product out there, don't you?
We do, and I want to, actually, we have a tape that I want to run, and I'm going to mention two things about our content. Years ago, as we began, and this is difficult, getting in the original content business, it's difficult. It's a lot of investment, a lot of trial and error. In order to be successful, you have to fail. And we did. We did plenty of trial and error, but we've really come of age. And it was very interesting. When we realized we had broken through, we had produced a novella called Pasión de Gavilanes, and it became an unbelievable hit on Antena Tres in Spain. I mean, it was like unbelievably big. That's when we knew we had arrived. Now, in Spain, our content is extremely popular. And we are now going to run a production called La Reina del Sur, which is one of the most sought-after books in the history of Spanish language television. It's our most ambitious production, and we're co-producing it with Antena Tres. Those relationships that form because of content make you bigger than the sum of your parts. Now, we have a tape that shows you the progression and genesis of the most popular novella in the history of Telemundo called Donde Está Lisa? And the journey began in Santiago, Chile with TVN and this extraordinary story and this extraordinary script that we were able to obtain. So if you can roll the tape, you'll see the progression of Donde Está Lisa?
Donde Está Elisa? A TV phenomenon in the United States and the rest of the world. A Televisión Nacional de Chile story, successfully produced by Telemundo, becoming its highest-rated telenovela with an average of more than 1.6 million viewers, and a 30% viewer increase from its premiere to its final episode. Telemundo's original production has been widely distributed in free TV, cable, satellite, VOD, and IPTV platforms, with format sales in over 15 markets and distributed in over 90 countries. Action.
No es posible que mi hija haya desaparecido así como así, que se haya esfumado en la nada. ¡Elisa! ¡Elisa!
Manajer sini kan? Hah? Kamu yang bertanggung tanggung jawab.
Kızım, kızım neredesin?
Recognized with prestigious international awards. Winner of Best Soap Opera at the Banff Awards in Canada. Winner of Special Judges Award at the Seoul Awards in Korea. And nominee for Best Telenovela at the Rose d'Or in Switzerland. In pre-production in Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Finland, Germany, Norway, Italy, the Philippines, the Netherlands, Switzerland, and many more. Donde está Elisa is television at its best. Telemundo International, the dream factory connecting with viewers around the world.
I just want to underline something that I don't think I was probably clear enough on. And it's one thing to want to do something, but when you come up with an idea of wanting to go into the original content business, the way you get there is extraordinary people. And we began with Patricia Wills and Marco Santana and his international team. And this doesn't happen by chance. It happens with great people. And the people that come to passionately do these things. When you're in the original content business, that's where they come. It's a very, very powerful force.
And I think the one thing to point out here is that your distribution business has evolved from taking product, canned product, so to speak, the novella as it exists, to taking the idea of a novella and selling the format and producing it overseas. So you're selling both things now, finished product and formats. That's something new. That's important. It opens new doors, doesn't it?
Format business is extremely important to the future, both all types of distribution, because a locally produced novella is very powerful. Local produced novellas always, most of the time, will win. So I think that combination of our national and international distribution and having these format sales are very, very powerful.
I want to get to what producing your own content allows you to do with advertisers, but before I go there, something came to mind. You mentioned before that it wasn't easy in the beginning, that there is failure along the way to achieve success. How further ahead are you in the game since you've been doing this 6 years compared to Univision, who's just starting now? Do you feel you have a competitive advantage? Or?
Well, I think we're significantly, necessity is the mother of invention. We had a tremendous necessity 7 years ago to reinvent. Univision didn't. They had a tremendous content supply from Televisa. Televisa's been in the business for 50 years. Venevision's been in the business for 50 years. So they didn't have to reinvent themselves. They didn't have to change. We were compelled to change. It was the best thing that ever happened to us. But we are significantly ahead of many people in the business, because we've evolved not just the original content, but it's what we produce. Our content is contemporary. It's provocative, it travels extremely well around the world, and it probably speaks to more relevance to our audience than the traditional type of novella that's produced. So our creative community, because remember, our audience is the US Hispanic audience. The material that Univision uses is produced somewhere else for this audience. Our sweet spot is speaking directly to the US Hispanic audience. That's what we produce for.
So you're not overly concerned that they're jumping into the novella game?
I think there's room for everybody. And I think, look, a good idea is a good idea. They knew a long time ago that if you look around, we're in Miami at NATPE. What is NATPE's theme? Content is first.
Right.
We're here in this international convention. Look at our presence. Look at Telemundo's presence. We're everywhere. We're a significant player. Univision can't be here because they don't produce original content. In fact, Venevision is the producer of this latest novella. So they know they have to go there, and I applaud them for it. I think that this is, anybody, I will tell you, if you're going to be in this business, if you're going to have a future in this business, you've got to be in the content business. And so I think that they've made a very good business investment to get into the business. But it's hard. It requires a lot of investment and some patience to get there, and we've had all the above.
Tell me a little bit because you've told me this story before, if you don't mind telling it again, when your creative people are coming up with ideas for a novella, you are able to bring advertisers in at that point. Explain how that works.
I think we've had I think Jackie Hernandez is here with her sales team and Mike Rodriguez. It's really interesting. We evolved the true client development meeting, because when you produce content, we bring our producers in, we bring our creative teams in with advertisers and clients and agencies. We have a clean sheet of paper. There's nothing on the paper. So you form a relationship where you understand their business, what they want to do. They understand the architecture of the novella, and you begin creating together. For instance, if you have a car that you want to buy, and your car, you want to market your car to a young professional woman, we can create a young professional lawyer, and we can put her in exactly the demographic car that, well, she has to drive a car, so why not drive a Ford? Right. So, but it's organic. It's something that allows you a unique ability to partner together and build relationships together, where you literally can have a product that lives within your novella, that's natural, it's organic, and it's constructive, and it drives their business.
But you've done this not only with products, you've done it also with sort of pro-social themes, haven't you?
Well, this is the pro-social thing is really important. I'm going to talk about journalism in a minute, which I agree that this is critically important. But in every one of our novellas, I'm a journalist by training, that's my passion. We have at least 3 or 4 significant pro-social messages in our novellas, and these are issues that affect the lives of Hispanics in this country. And all of our research indicates that when someone watches a novella, it's a learning experience. It's an informational and empowering, yes, it's entertaining, but it's informational and empowering. And that relevance, creating these socially relevant themes in novellas, give us a differentiator in making a real connection with our audience.
Weren't you out there with the census again?
Oh, that's another thing. I have been an incredible evangelist about the census, and the census was one of the biggest issues that the U.S. Census Department had, was the fear of Hispanics participating in a government program. So we created a character that lived within one of our novellas that was a census worker. So within her experiences, she was able to entertain, but most importantly, educate the fact that this was a constructive, positive thing. This is the process, and this is why it's important to participate in. It wasn't lecturing. It was informing and educating and entertaining. And the Census Department said it was one of the most effective vehicles that they had seen. Now, we had total creative independence, but it had a tremendous payoff, and we got tremendous accolades from the Census Bureau. And most importantly, it's important for people to participate without fear, and so we accomplished something while entertaining.
It's true that Univision has a very strong news department, but certainly Telemundo does too. Tell me a little bit about how you reach out to the community, and this is one major way, the census, and what other ways? We
have an extraordinarily focused, feisty, passionate news department. And as they say, we may not be as big, but my father told me a long time ago, son, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. And my news department's here, and I will tell you how feisty they are and how passionate they are. When it came to Arizona, which is probably the civil rights story of our time, there was one network that was there first. There was one network that challenged that law. There was one network anchor that was there first, beyond the general market, beyond anybody else, and it was Telemundo. And we've owned that story. We've led in that story, and I'm very proud of that, because this is, I said before, we're going through profound changes in this country that speak to our business, but speak to our country. When I say the majority population is getting smaller and the Hispanic population is significantly larger, the rubber's hitting the road. There's some very unattractive aspects, and Hispanics today need Hispanic media more than they ever have. It's critically important. I covered civil rights when I was a journalist. This is a very important civil rights period of our time. So, and I'm also happy to say that we're going to participate in the first presidential debate. We're very excited about this. I'm very proud of our team, but I think this is no matter what network you're with, serving this community through journalism is critically important to our communities. They need us, and we're the general market is not serving the news needs of the Hispanic community. The Hispanic networks are, and this is our time to step up and serve, and even in our our local television stations, we are reinvesting in localism. Localism is extremely important. So news, I think, is a critical fabric of connectivity to our audience going forward. It's critically important to us.
As this Hispanic population continues to change and evolve, how are you serving the bilingual, acculturated Hispanics who are turning, let's face it, to English language programming to find their entertainment?
Well, this is interesting. I mean, I'm very proud of the little engine that is now a big engine that could, and that's Mundos. Mundos started out as a wonderful little idea that we've nurtured, and it serves the bilingual, bicultural youth market. It's certainly the fastest growing segment of the U.S. Hispanic population. These are people that drive and influence, and Mundos is up 100% year over year in ratings, growing 25% a year. We're very proud of this because we're serving a very, very important part of our community. And by the way, Mundos also drives back to the mothership of the network, and we also drive back to Mundos, and also through our digital. We have Peter Blacker and his team is here. We have a fantastic digital operation because we own all our content.
Right.
So we can populate and produce enormous amounts of content in digital broadband and internet. But going back to the bicultural, there's something very important that I think is going to happen, is beginning to happen. This general market all of a sudden is going to wake up and say, oh my God, what are we going to do with this unbelievable opportunity? And I think Cesar mentioned this. The novella is a very compelling genre. And even if you're an acculturated Hispanic, you will watch a novella because it speaks to your culture. It speaks to you. And that is a huge differentiator that we have. Yes, the acculturated Hispanics and bilingual Hispanics are moving back and forth, but the quality of Spanish language television is on par with the general market now, whether it's high definition, whether it's the production values. We're competing, and we're going to chip away at that. And the other thing, going back to the census, that's going to be such a game changer. Right now in Miami, the number one, number two station in Miami are in the general market are Spanish language station. Telemundo number one, Univision number two. You heard about L.A., right. Houston, Dallas are the number one in general market. After the census comes out, after Nielsen reconfigures, you're going to have many number one stations in the U.S. that are the stations. The number one station in the general market will be Hispanic. That's the game. That's the psychological and practical game changer of the economics of this. And as the economics start shifting, as dollars start moving from general market to Hispanic, that's going to be an extraordinary. By the time we hit 2012, the landscape will be extraordinarily different than it is now.
Is that a tough conversation to have with advertisers who only look at the English language media to pull them over to you?
It's not as tough as it used to be. And I think, again, I love Randy Falco, and I'll plug Randy again. So you know, Randy used to be my boss. And Randy learned all about Spanish language television through Telemundo. And he saw the passion, he saw the numbers, and that's why Randy Falco has now become one of the great evangelists for the Hispanic market. And I think this is all good. In the Hispanic television industry, we're all going to float on a rising tide. The pie is going to get bigger, and we're all going to enjoy having a much bigger piece of the pie. So, I mean, if you're not in the Hispanic media, you ought to get in. And if you're going to get in pretty quick, because it's going to be probably the best place to be in the next, well, forever. And this is amazing. In 2050, 1 in every 3 people in the United States will be Hispanic.
2050, 50.
2050. It's never going to go back to what it was. It's only going to go and become what it's going to be. And so if you're in the Hispanic media business, if you're speaking to that, if you're investing and want to grow your business, this is the single fastest, most compelling way to grow your business, is to invest in Hispanic.
You mentioned NBC before. I would be remiss, I think we only have a few minutes, but is there any impact to Telemundo of the Comcast-NBCU merger?
I think it's only positive. I think I have to go back to say again, I'm delighted that NBC had the vision to buy Telemundo 8 years ago, that they've made significant investments so we could transform ourselves into a content company. I think Comcast, I know for a fact, they're extremely excited to have a multinational, multimedia, multi-platform Hispanic content company on the eve of the census. They see their audience base growing dramatically in Hispanic. All indications are not only are they thrilled to have Telemundo, but they can't wait to invest. And I think that's a perfect combination. And I really believe that with Comcast and NBC Universal, we are going to be able to not only enjoy their investments, but increasingly become a significant player, as we are globally, but an even more significant player in the domestic United States.
Same question to you. As you look forward 12 months, what are you excited about? Besides the changing panorama that the census will bring, what growth opportunities do you see?
Well, I think the first growth opportunity is in our primetime performance, and I have to tell you, I'm most excited about Lorena Dosur. This is, I've been around the business for a long time. This is a fabulous production. Katie Castillo is one of the most extraordinary actors I've ever seen. We're very excited about Lorena Dosur, and that's probably late February. But in general, I think the quality of our content, it's getting stronger, more compelling. And I think that we're going to expand into other areas. But I think essentially what we've done is we've transformed ourselves into a content company that is everywhere our audience is and are going to be. Whether it's bilingual, bicultural youth, acculturated, or Spanish only, whether you're using a mobile device, broadband, internet, cable, broadcast, international, we're everywhere our audiences are. We're everywhere our audience is going to be. And I think the biggest challenge for us is to continue to invigorate and open the door for extraordinarily talented people who are passionate, who want to serve this community and want to produce content.
Is that voice out in the community? They know that. What do they know? What does a writer-producer, what can they expect when they come to work at Telemundo?
Creative freedom, the ability to be provocative, the ability to raise the bar on creativity, the ability to look deep into the U.S. Hispanic experience, which is unique. Think about it. We have an enormously diverse audience in the United States, but everyone has two things in common. They've come from some other place at some time to experience life in the United States, and they share language and different cultures. The diversity we have and the people that work for us reflect all those different cultures and ideas. And I think the most powerful idea for us creatively is to capture that unique U.S. Hispanic experience, the humor of it, the challenge of it, the aspiration of it. And I'll just leave you with something that's extraordinarily powerful. And I don't know if all of you were touched by this, but think about this. The first African-American president of the United States observing Sotomayor and her mother as she took her position on the Supreme Court. Her mother is our audience. Her mother worked 2 or 3 jobs because she dreamed about maybe one day her daughter would go to college. Maybe one day her daughter could dream to be a judge or a lawyer, and maybe one day to sit on the Supreme Court. That power of aspiration, that uniquely U.S. Hispanic experience, is what our writers and what our producers want to capture and manifest back to our audiences. If we do that, we will have served our community, and we will be very, very successful, because I don't think there's any more power than aspiration, any more excitement than drawing great and talented people and letting them create and turning them loose to reflect this unbelievable audience that we serve.
On that note, thank you, Don. Thank you
you
so much.